reviewing this topic or researching this topic from an economic perspective, you need to read the other studies and see what the others said about this and what they missed. Okay? In order to identify your points and to identify the angle through which you are going to research this topic. Of course, there are some strategies that you need to follow. You need first to identify your scope and focus. If you are researching education, for example, and this is my case, of course, education is broad. You can't take education as one main scope. Okay, you need to identify one narrowed one. Like, I am researching education policy. Okay, this is one aspect of education within Moroccan context. And okay, education policy has many aspects. Am I talking about infrastructure policy? I'm talking about economic policy. I'm talking about, I don't know, inequality, for example. So I need to identify the scope, the exact field of my research. Then I need to look for theories that talks about this topic. For example, I'm talking about again education policy, so I need to look for theories that tackles this topic, like to lay the foundation of my research. Then I need to look for researchers who says not who says who researchers the same topic as me. Researchers who talk about education policy in Morocco, who talks about education policy in my city, for example, then I need to synthesize and to have a conclusion. Okay? It's not about this one says this and this one says this, so this is the truth. No, you need to be critical about what you read. You need to evaluate what you are reading actually. This one says this and this one says this. I say this. Okay? So I don't know, that person think that education policy should be held from this point. The other one think that it should be like this, but this one has some shortcomings and this one has other shortcomings. So I need to like think that this is what's missing and I need to fill this gap. Okay, so this is just a general overview. I think that Dr. Ashley is here, right? So maybe she can explain this in details. Otherwise, I can get back and give more details and examples.
Thank you so much, Soumya. That's quite insightful. Yes, we need to know the scope. What are the theories behind that? Dr. Ashley, please. I hope you now louder.
I think he still has issues maybe with the connectivity.
Yeah, today it must work. It must work. So now Soumya, I think as you're discussing about that, they need to identify the scope. Now, whenever you're doing a literature review, some would argue that you must identify gaps. So as you're looking for materials concerning your research topic, that you need to look at your gaps. So I don't know from your experience, what are these gaps that someone may likely have to look for whenever they're doing literature review?
All right. So, when I say scope, so it's like a guideline, like a framework that you are, or perspective that you need to look for. Because, as I've said, if I'm discussing economy or politics or any field, so this is a broad field. So I need to have an exact point from that field. I need to identify first my exact field. So I make sure that I'm looking from the right lens, and I am on the right track. Okay. So concerning gaps, so this is I believe that gaps are the outcome of the literature review. When I read what the others said about my topic, when I synthesize and look critically at every single study that I read. Of course, when reading, you need to look for the theories the author uses, the methodology they uses, the findings, of course, and their limitations. And for each article or for each study, you need to gather this information, then you synthesize the whole like the whole or to synthesize everything, then you need to identify your gap, like from this one and from that one and from all the authors that I've read so far. So I identify one missing point. For example, everyone talks about education policy and how it helps us to grow economically, for example. But I noticed that no one talks about that when we are seeking economy through education, we are losing the students' agency, for example, or we are reducing students to a mere economic tools. Okay? So this is the gap. Like the gap is the outcome of the literature review. I need to read to identify a gap. Sometimes of course, and this gap is the heart of your research, is the missing piece in the puzzle that you're going to research. Yes? Sorry, can you mute yourself, please?
It's Andrew. Andrew, maybe you could mute. Is it Andrew?
Yeah. So what I was saying that is that the gap is the heart of your research. The whole paper is revolved around that gap. So sometimes I say that before reading, before doing the literature review, I imagine that okay, or I assume that people are lazy because they are using AI, for example. Okay, so I assume that this is what I want to research in my article. This is what I want to talk about. But when I read a lot of works about AI, when I read a lot of work about laziness and so on, I discovered that, for example, a lot of studies, a lot of people talks about this. A lot of studies prove that this is not correct. For example, okay, so this is just an example. So my literature review turns what I think or what I want to do into something feasible, something real. Is it feasible? Is it already discussed? Is it researchable, for example? Okay, so it's a must to start. Like this is for me is the foundation of your research. You need to look for like there is a saying that says if you want to understand your future, you need to look for the past. Okay, so this is the case here. If you want to understand your research, you need to look for the past published work on your field. Okay, and of course, in your field, in your research, you have variables, and we talked about this last session, if you remember, of course. So we said that we have some variables. We have two variables, for example. So this is the minimum. When doing the literature review, you need to look for resources that are related to each variable. You have the first variable. You need to look for studies, theories, research outcomes that talks about that variable. Then you need to look for the same thing for research yes, works and so on, that theories that talks about that other variables, and then you synthesize and relate each one to the other. Okay. All right, so I think this is a general overview of literature review. So yes, if you have anything to add, Dr. Wilbur, or maybe we can give them the floor to ask questions, then we can have a discussion. What do you think?
Thank you.
Is my audio working now?
Yes, yes.
By
Oh,
chance?
fine, fine. What's Ashley?
Yes, it's
Okay.
working now. Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
Good.
Welcome, welcome, Ashley. Unmute. Oh, sorry. I was muted. Dr. Ashley, you can come in. I think what Somi has been talking about is just about the issues of research gap and how do we identify research gap even as we are looking for literature. I'm sure you will be taking us through how to do a literature from the funnel point of view as we narrow it down. But I think she has also said that it's important that whenever we looking at research, yes. So I think I wouldn't take so much. You can go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I'm on my computer and on my phone. So this is a different setup than normal, but let me know if anything goes awry. Sumia, you've done a great job, so I'm going to basically skip over this first slide, which is what we had discussed today. The one thing I do want to make sure we come back to is how to locate research articles. Okay, skipping here. So this is basically a graphic that covers everything that Sumia discussed. So if you are a visual person, you can look over this. But basically, yes, we are saying this is the existing knowledge. We're showing that we've read in the field. We're also shaping our argument. One of the challenges that I faced I still face whenever I'm writing is that I feel like I have to cover everything that everyone has ever said related to my topic. And that is not the case. Goes back to scope, right? So if this is what my argument is, if this is what I'm focusing on, then my literature review should be tailored to that. And also remember, our literature review isn't the majority of our paper. So we're doing more reading than we will writing about our topic. Okay. In your literature review, and sometimes you'll read an article that doesn't actually have a section that says literature review. In their introduction, they'll kind of give a lot of this same information, but you want to make sure that you are identifying your key terms, defining it so everyone understands what you're talking about. Because if you say quality education and I say quality education, we may have two different ideas. If I say moral education and you say moral education, we may have two different ideas. If I say sustainable solutions as someone coming from the West and you say sustainable solutions, we might be talking about two different things. So we need to make sure that we make it very explicit what we're discussing, and that will only make our argument tighter. Evaluating sources is very important because now with AI, it is pulling from a lot of open educational resources and just generally the internet widely. I can't remember if I discussed this previously with this group or a different group. I don't think open educational resources are bad. I don't think open journals are bad, just like I don't think journals with high um, article processing charges are better. However, that peer review process is so critical, is so very, very critical. And your institution may not have access to a wealth of journals. And so you may have to pull from these outside sources, but there's still a way to do a quality check, which we'll talk about in just a second. You also want to think about how you're organizing the literature review. You can organize by idea, you can organize by argument. You can do it by topic or subsection, or you can do it in a chronological order if that's important to what your research is. For example, if you're talking about policy, it might be helpful to have kind of like a timeline of these are the things that happen, and this is what people were thinking at that time, but this is how we've moved forward. So how to choose the right journal. This I think is a very useful frame. Again, scope is the most important thing when you're talking about writing. You cannot be an expert on all things related to the topic. You have to find your niche. The article type, if you are writing, for example, a quantitative research study, in your literature review, I'm not saying you should stay away from qualitative data, but you want to make sure that you're balancing it, because the qualitative data may not give you what you need as a quantitative researcher. Now there are many places that will add when an article was submitted and when it was accepted. It's very disheartening and discouraging to see sometimes that it could take over a year for an article to be accepted. The ones you want to watch out for is if it was submitted and then a month later it was published. That's typically a sign that something else was happening during the review period, which would make me wonder about the peer review. But there's different, for me, Scopus is, I don't really check Scopus that much. I like to pull from places that I feel are legitimate because I read a lot in my field. So looking at those things is important, but it's not the most important thing for me, because I understand journals, just like universities, get their reputation through various means. But this is one way for you to look for articles. This is what I want to spend a little bit more time on. There's this method called CRAP. And so when you're looking at any type of journal article, or it could be a regular article, any type of information, and you're wondering whether or not it's legitimate enough to include in your research, here are some things you can consider. The currency. Is this information still timely? For some data, especially survey data, it may, like census data, for example, is every 10 years here in the United States. So I can't look at something and say, oh, it's out of date if it's within that 10-year period. Then it's still very much timely and very much relevant. But there's some information where if it's 10 years old, or even if it's 5 years old, it could be questionable. To give an example, some of my research in the past has looked at international student mobility. If I were to use data from 5 years ago to discuss higher education, or even 6 years ago, that data would not be very useful, because we've had COVID and now we're having a lot of upsets around visas. So even though it's within that 10-year time period, it's not giving an accurate picture. Relevance. Does the information relate to your topic or answer your question? If it is not helpful, then you may not need to use it. Again, think of your paper in terms of real estate and only including the things that have high value. Who is the intended audience, and is it at an appropriate level? So if you're pulling from Wikipedia, the audience is going to be very general audience. That might not be helpful for you if you are trying to speak to an expert audience or trying to inform policy. Authority. Who is the author, publisher, source, or sponsor? If you can't locate that, then that is concerning. I think that sponsor piece is very important. And for if you're discussing agriculture or anything like that, or the economy, part of the sponsor is going to be the government for a lot of these things. So consider that when you're talking about bias and information that's available in that study or that's not available in that study. Is the author qualified to write on the topic? I'm going to give an example. There is a book that's very popular here in the United States called The 5 Love Languages, and people have used this to talk about their romantic partners or even their family and how they're connecting. But when you look at the background of the author, they are not a licensed psychologist to give this information, right? So those are things that you should also consider the background of the author. Accuracy, the reliability, truthfulness, and correctness of the content. Where does the information come from? How has the data been skewed? We're very big here on a lot of programs in the US to say that data is not neutral. It's not. All data has a bias. All data is skewed in some way because it's storytelling. And there's no way to tell a story completely neutral. And then finally, purpose. What's the reason the information exists? So if we started this training by saying that there's an agenda, that everyone is making an argument, that when you write, you're making your argument, the information that you are also consuming, they have a purpose, they have a goal in mind, and we should consider that as we consider its place within our research. So I hope that makes sense, but these are things whenever you're looking at an article, or even if you're reading something and it doesn't sit well with you and you're not really sure, and maybe you want to critique it, come to this crap, and then you'll be able to say, okay, my issue with this is that it's not accurate, or that the purpose is purely to distort or to cover up some information. So this is, I feel, very useful. Okay, seems my computer is not advancing. Okay, so I'll stop there. And or actually, before I stop, there are two things I want to mention. How to find journal articles. Give me 1 second. Okay, so there are many different ways to find journal articles. Perhaps you do have access to certain databases through your library. There's also different associations, but there are a few places that I think are very helpful. Google Scholar is one of them. Now, Google Scholar is not perfect, but it is a good starting point. So I'm going to give a quick example. I want to learn about deaf education in Kenya. Oh, okay, so this is not working. Live and in color. So the US is the land of opportunity, but we have our own internet issues as well, as you can see. So let me try a different browser. See if that will help me along.
Nazanga global alafu.
Okay, there we go.
Lakini ziko chronological. Nyaka.
I'm here, but my computer has lost network connection, so it's reconnecting right now, and then I'll share the screen.
Dr. Ashley, as you're working on that, I think there is also a question as we do a literature review. Some people have said probably we need to look at your research problem from a global point of view, then a regional point of view. Then if it is a national, then you bring it to your local context. I don't know what you would say about the same.
I think comparative can be helpful, but it's not always necessary.
Mm.
And many times when there is a pull to make it comparative, it's usually from a non-Western country saying that we need to look at the West. So that's also an issue that I have as a researcher here in the United States. I had to choose a program that had a comparative lens. It's not a default. So depending on what your epistemology is and what you're trying to achieve, it can be helpful, but it's not always necessary. If for example, if you're talking about policy, I think policy loaning can be very, very helpful to look at what other countries are doing. Whether you're using it to prove a point or to show comparative, how I guess similar countries are doing or where one country falls, I think it can be helpful, but it's not always necessary. Some issues are so contextually specific that to make it comparative, it can lose its value. At the same time, if you are trying to submit your research to international journals, they are going to want to have some relevance so that readers who are not an expert in this context may be able to be interested in your topic. So I think it depends on what the author is trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my take. And that's my take.
I think I love your epistemological view, because sometimes we have always imagined that whenever we quote from a global point of view, then that's the benchmark. But sometimes actually the local context is may even have better benchmarks compared to the national or even the global, as you're putting it. So I think I agree with you to a very large extent. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So this is Google Scholar. And what I like is that it also pulls from a lot of open educational resources. You have dates. So we already see this 2002 article. I might not want to use that. So I can adjust this here to a custom time range. So I'm seeing articles that were published within a given time frame. So let's say I just want a 4-year time frame. I can look at these articles. Where you see PDF, that means I can click it and it's going to take me directly to that article. Where you don't see one, it may not be available. So that is one reason I like it. Another reason, and I know you were going to get into this later, but for citations, you want to keep track of all your citations. You can copy and paste from Google Scholar. It's not going to be perfect every time, so you still need to understand the basics. For me, I use APA in most of my research, so I would just copy this, and there's different ways to manage it, which again, we'll get into later. But this is the other thing that I like. I can see who cited this article, who's pulling from this information. And if it's not cited, then maybe, it's from an early scholar or it just wasn't picked up yet. There could be lots of reasons why people haven't cited it. I could also look at related articles to see things that are similar. Here's one we see, again, this is older, which is probably why it has more citations because it's been around longer. But here's one that's within that time frame and it was cited by 32 people. And the PDF is available. So this might be something that I go to automatically. So that's one way to find information. Again, I'm trying to make sure that you can get information even if you don't have access to lots of other resources. Another thing is ResearchGate. I'm not logged in on this browser. I'm logged in on another browser.
Just before, I don't know, I don't know, just before then, I also wanted you to share something on the same on Google. Yes, just maybe make it, can you zoom in, zoom out? Yes. At that save, you can actually save that in your library. Just go at the library at save. Yes, that part is, yes. So actually, yeah. So now you can actually create, I think there is something create new. So if I'm talking about what you're saying, yeah, so I can create a folder under that create new, and then I will always be saving my work at that place. So anytime I want to make some reference, I can always go back there and check. Thank you.
You're welcome. And also, I didn't add this, but there is this My Library up here. So
Sure.
you can connect your university account to this. And so all the information that's in your university library can be pulled here too. So it just makes searching a lot simpler. And for example, if I see an article that's not available here, so this E.L. Peel, it's a book, but maybe there's a book chapter that's important to me. I can look on ResearchGate or academia.edu and reach out to the author directly and say, I am looking for this article. Can you send it to me? I have not had a situation yet in which the author did not send it to me, because authors don't make money from publishing most of the time. So they're very happy to share that information. So don't let not having access to an article stop you from getting the work done that you need and want to get done. So those are the two things that I wanted to share. Thank you for your patience.
Wow. Wow, that's quite insightful. I think yes. Now it's time for class participation. We've just heard that there are many ways in which we can do research, and I think I love the acronym CRAP, that you have to look at the currency of your research, whether it's relevant or reliable, whether it is authoritative, is it a quack that has written that work and you want to cite, or it's a serious person. Then you just want to know whether the exact purpose for what you're doing. And I think as we do that literature, it may be very important. I don't know if there could be questions, please, members. We are glad, and as we are thinking about also taking us through shortly on APA style. Soumya, do you have any contribution to add as members think about the question? And please take advantage of the chat box. You can also make your communication on our chat box, and then we can read and see.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much, Ashley, for this insightful presentation. I think Ashley says everything about how to find relevant resources, how to organize them. I really benefit from the ideas she shared, especially like creating a library. And this reminds me of one software that I'm using, which is Zotero, I think that you are all aware of. So basically, you can use it to organize your materials and to organize your readings. And it's directly, actually, I'm not using my laptop now, but I try to show you from my laptop, from my tablet. 1 minute, please. I don't know whether I can share it. Okay, so this one. Can you see it?
Yep.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is yes, this is a software that you can use. So here I'm using it in my tablet, but I usually use it in my my laptop, and you can connect it directly to either Google Doc or the Word, like Microsoft Word. So you have here, you can see I have here all items that I've read. I have, for example, CDA. So here I have every articles like related to each one, okay, or about CDA, and I can here mark, for example, something that I've read, okay, something about references, okay, so something useful, so I can mark it like this. So whenever you read something, you can highlight it and you can create notes about that document or about that article. And when you actually want to start writing, yes, I lost my. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, when you want to write, so it's linked directly to Microsoft Word or Google Docs. So you try to add references, you click on Zotero, and it immediately writes the correct reference from the article you are citing or you are referring to. So it's very helpful way to organize your readings first and to connect articles and books that are related to each other, and of course create reading notes. And it helps in the writing process. So instead of looking for how to cite this one, for example, in EPA, or how to cite it correctly, or to look for the dates or something like that, so it's immediately it appears immediately as you want. So you just choose the reference style that you are writing with, like APA, MLA, or whatever, Chicago or something like that. Then it appears immediately in your main doc when you are writing your article. So I think that this is a very useful way that you can yeah, that you can use. And yeah, so, and of course I want to highlight one critical idea. When you read your resources, you need to have reading notes. So how to organize your notes? Of course, for each article or each book or each chapter, you need to keep the author, the main ideas, and the main arguments each one is saying. And you can have, for me, I created a chart, like a tracker. For example, I'm working with one theory, so I created a tracker for this theory. Okay, so for example, I want to define this theory. I write every note, okay, related to the definition of the theory. What is, or let's say, I want to define what is education. So I say that education is this, and I write the resource. Okay, this person says this. Whenever I read something about the definition, I put it in that folder. So when I want to start writing, and I want to start by writing the definition, I have my folder organized with different definitions and with the accurate resources. Like, so I'm not because sometimes when you are just writing and just reading and writing notes, like for each article or for each book separately, when you try to start writing, so you feel like you are confused, you can't remember. For example, you may forget an important resource or an important author, like but when you organize your notes in based on themes you want to write, or based on your outline, so your the writing process is much easier. You have everything you need, and you have every resource is there, so you won't spend much time looking for other resources or something like that. And that's what I want to say.
Yeah, thank you, Soumya and Ashley, for that nice presentation. Now, members, I don't know whether we have any questions. We want now to involve all of us in this session for the next few minutes or so. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? You feel you're adequate in any of that write-up? This time you have to talk. Oh. Yeah. Daudi mpaka muongee bwana. Now, actually, there's a concern that we've always had to discuss with some of my colleagues elsewhere. Whenever you're writing a research, a literature review, usually from quantitative aspect, there is the explanatory variable, and there is the outcome variable. That's the dependent and the independent variable. So now, when you're writing a literature review, what do you look for? How do you balance between the outcome variable and the outcome or the dependent variable and the independent or the explanatory variables from that perspective?
That is a good question. And I can't say that I'm an expert because most of my research has been qualitative or mixed methods, and I leave the other side to my colleagues. For me, it's always about the story and whatever is going to help me set up a convincing plot. That's how I think of it. I think we need a plot, we need characters that are trustworthy. You have to trust me as an author that I'm going to take you and lead you on a good journey. And so I look for data that is helpful. I'll give one example. I was working on a research study that was looking at the experiences of women who were pregnant or postpartum during COVID, who were also incarcerated. So we were looking at the experiences of women who were incarcerated during COVID, who were also pregnant or postpartum. At that time, we had a lot of data that we could have included about women and how women were not considered in these data, but it wasn't helpful because we're talking about COVID. So instead of looking at all the information we have about women, we looked specifically at what was being produced during COVID. There's not a lot of research about women in general. And when we talk about the prison population in the US, most of it is male dominated. So we could have used that data and it would have supported us. But it was more drastic, it was more dramatic, it was more of a wow if we said, this is the discourse that's happening during COVID. And guess what? There have been zero, or there have been only 3 mentions of women who are pregnant or people who are incarcerated. It was just more dramatic to use that frame. So I would say whatever's going to be helpful, that's the data you use. There were other places where let me just say, in this section, when we're setting up the article, we didn't use a lot of the qualitative data because our study was a qualitative study. So we had all of the feelings and emotions of the women and the people that were impacted later on in the research. So we wanted to make sure that we captured the attention of people that spoke numbers. So for us, we wrote our literature review section mostly looking at statistics and quantitative data and less the qualitative. So that it depends on the study. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But I would say go for impact.
Yes, members, thank you, Ashley. Now, members, we want to hear your voice kindly.
Yes, Doctor, let me be the first one to speak. I have listened to both Dr. Ashley and our other friend.
Somia, you don't know how to pronounce it.
Yes, Somia. And from what I've gathered, they are saying that a literature review shows contribution to the existing knowledge. Now, what I'm failing to understand is this. When I want to prepare a good and quality literature review, what are the steps? What do I need first? Do I look for they say the journals, read them, then make a summary, then from there work on my literature review. Now, how do I introduce this literature review? I think those are my concerns.
I can take the first step. For me, I was trained in academia. So the advice that I'm giving, or I would be giving you, would be based off of someone who had a class, how to do this for work, right? So I would say you should know the journals in your field. You should know the associations in your field and start with that. If that is not your story, if that is not your story, I think Google Scholar is a good place to start. Because then you're looking at names, then you're finding out, oh, okay, these are the journals, or I'm seeing this particular journal pop up a lot. They, at least you know that they publish that type of research. So I think Google Scholar is a fine place to start. There are some journals when you are publishing, and that's why it is helpful to know where you want to publish your research ahead of time, because then you'll know how to frame your paper. But there are journals that say we want a literature review section, and so they're expecting you to have your introduction bold, centered, and then your next big section will be titled literature review. But there are cases where they don't ask for a literature review, so you don't have to announce your literature review. Everything should read like a narrative. And this goes back to the they say, I say, except right now you're talking about they. Who are the theys? You can either structure your literature review where people are debating each other. This person says this, but this person says this. Or you could have it where they're building on each other. So this person said this other person built on that idea, and this other person applied it this way. However, it has not been applied in X, Y, and Z, and that X, Y, and Z is going to be your contribution. So how you structure it and how you write it depends on the information that you have. If you have a lot of scholars that are debating because there is no consensus, then you would structure it most likely where you're making sure you have the proponents of it and also the opponents. But if it's something where, for example, I don't know anyone who is writing saying it's good to have plastic in our ocean. Like, I don't know anyone that's writing that. So having some sort of debate is not really helpful in that type of scenario. So I hope that gives you a little bit of guidance. Sumi, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
Thank you so much. Actually, I think that you've said everything concerning the first question, which is from where can I start, right? So, of course, you need to identify, of course, as I've said, identify your field, identify your scope, then you search for your like the references, the relevant references, and you need to know exactly the figures, like the researchers, the authors in your field, as Ashley says. Concerning, of course, you need to start from the reading. Yes, the reading is the key for me. Yes, because I had this situation. Like I thought that I'm researching something. I don't know, unbelievable. Yes, and especially in my master thesis because my PhD is a continuance my master thesis. So given like the time constraints, and like I didn't have much time to read the whole theories, to read a lot about every single author I have now. So I remember that concerning the related studies, I didn't find much, and I stated this as a limitation, and my thesis was weak. But when I dedicated time and because in PhD here in Morocco we have 3 years, like we have enough time to read and to know exactly what you are researching, to read about the authors. I discovered that my topic is already discussed. I discovered that there are a lot of authors, a lot of relevant theories, relevant studies that talks about this topic. So yeah, I begin to understand what I'm researching to begin. It's like reading, it's like eye-opening. I understand in a more critical way. And of course, I always say this. Okay, you are reading and you need to start writing. Don't write as you are narrating or you are describing. Write as you are thinking or arguing. You are critically engaging with what you are reading. Okay, so because if I just describe what people are saying, so this shows that you didn't understand much from the other works. You didn't much understand much from much of your field, and your thesis is weak. You need to engage, as I've said, critically with your readings and with your thoughts concerning how to organize your readings and how to organize them, like you meant in writing, right? So I think that there are ways of organizing literature review, as Dr. Ashley already said, and I know that there are some types of literature review that I usually use, which is I usually use thematic analysis, thematic literature review, not thematic analysis, sorry. So thematic literature review is you organize your data, your readings and your arguments based on themes. For example, I'm talking about education, so this is the first theme. I'm talking about education policy, so this is another theme. I'm talking about Moroccan, Moroccan educational landscape, and this is another theme. So I started from the broad, I'm talking about education policy, and narrow it down to education in Morocco. Then from here, from education in Morocco, I can identify my gap because I'm working within this specific focus, which is Moroccan education policy. Of course, we didn't talk about a theoretical framework. I'm not sure whether this applies for each single type of research. I am working on mixed method, but my work is usually qualitative, not quantitative, since I'm engaging with critical discourse analysis, which is a text analysis, a type of linguistics and text analysis. So here I'm I have to start from a theoretical framework. So I don't know whether we have time, so I can explain briefly what do you mean by theoretical framework. So within your literature review, you need to identify theories, main theories of your field. Okay, so here, for example, I work with critical theory, I work with Marxist theory, but I'm not just mentioning the theories just because they are well known or because they are uh, well known in my field. Okay, so I need to justify why I'm using this theories, because this theories will help me to analyze, to guide my analysis when I want to analyze, and have in a practical way to analyze my data. I need to use these theories that I used in the literature review to guide my analysis. I need to, when I analyze text, I need to look at it from, for example, a critical theory lens, from a Marxist theory lens. So that is why it is important to be consistent and to know, and to be mindful. If I am putting something in my literature review, you need to know that this is the guiding or this is the guideline for the whole thesis, for the whole article. again, for the researcher, for the other studies or related studies that are included about your research, be mindful that you are going to use these findings in the discussion section. Like, okay, I analyzed my data. I analyzed my data. Let's say, um, I analyzed my data, analyzed my findings. I have my findings with me, so I can just uh, give these findings and put them like my findings. Uh, I need to analyze them and compare them with the other studies, with the other related studies. Okay, so this is the idea. So I want to say that everything you are sharing, everything you are including in your data, in your literature review, is related to your whole article, and it should be the roadmap of your whole article. You need them. You are not just putting them at the beginning of your article, but you need to use them at the end of your discussion section to show. For example, you show, they said this and I found this. Okay, and you synthesize again. And yes, that's it. That's what I have to say about this. And thank you for listening.
Well, that's quite elaborate. That's quite elaborate. Now, I think members, we are agreeing, and I thank Soumya for that expansive explanation. Now, we have agreed that as we do this research, there are many things that really one would be interested in. Why did you find a research problem, and where did you get that source of information to back up your thoughts, your fears, or your controversies, as we put it? Na tukasema kwamba sometimes your research may have a problem of periodicity, just like Ashley has said. If you're looking at migration, it's 5 years, then 5 years ago, the events 5 years ago and now are so different because of governance and because of the political situation we are seeing throughout the world. So now the periodicity becomes a very important aspect. So if someone did a research in 2019 where we had COVID, are the results likely to change now in 2026 because of no COVID, or maybe because there is a war between Israel and Iran, for example? What about the geography? You know, I did my research in an urban setup. My research is in a rural setup. Is there likely to be, a difference in the results because of the location of my study? So we're talking about the geography or the geographical location of your study. Now, someone will come up with different results, different findings based on the area where this study was done. And many times, I think for those of us who are doing thesis, they will be asking you, can you justify the location of your study? Why didn't you do this study in Nairobi and not Mombasa? Why didn't you do this study in Mombasa and not Nakuru or not Kakamega? So the geographical location sometimes may determine the outcome of your research or your study, and therefore some idea or some concepts from that research finding may be very important. Another observation that you may be looking at from at a quantitative point of view is your sample size. We know very well from a quantitative point of view that the larger the sample size, then the more accurate that data is likely to present. So now you want to look at your sample size. I did a sample of 300. Someone did a sample size of 1,000 or 2,000. Then probably the results may be different. And so you want to find out a gap. Was it because was the difference in the research findings that you are getting as a result of the sample size that you're looking about? You're talking about. What about the research methodology? As we have heard, some people may have a qualitative aspect in every aspect of their study. Others have a quantitative. Others are using mixed method. Others are doing a correlational study. So me, I did a correlational study on this particular topic. Someone did a mixed, he did, he used a different research methodology, as it were. So if I used a different research methodology, I used a different research design, am I likely to get the same results? So now when you're looking at your literature review, remember we are saying that at the end of the day, we want to see and you justifying why you think that a study is worth as actually, put it. What is your story? So your story is because I think I have a problem with my research design that Jahonga used. I have a problem with the way Imbali used. So because of this, my method will be this, and this is my justification. So as you're doing your literature review, remember your listener wants to get all those things. What are your perspective? What is your perspective? And I'm glad that Sumi has talked about that, because we were asking us, I was asking myself, why would it be important for someone to anchor their study on a particular theory? And I think she has answered it very well, because that many times being academia, we are saying that you want to do your study based on some theoretical assumptions. And we know that for you to come up with a theory, there must have been facts. If you are discussing about, say, the theory of demand, you must have tested to see how price and the demand changes, so that you say this is the law of demand. Or you want to look at the theory of the consumer theory, for example. As someone was talking about job search theory, for example, if I'm looking for a job, there are some certain parameters that determine a job search theory. That's the one that I used in my PhD, a job search theory. But then now you discover that within the job search theory, there is another theory called job competition theory. So now you may look at a problem from a job search theory lens or from a job competition theory lens, and how you analyze those variables, because each theory has its specific parameters and assumptions that make you agree or disagree with that kind of analysis. So now when you're making your study, when you're making your research, then it is very, very important that you tell us, this is my paradigm. This is the way I'm looking at this problem from a job theory search, or from a job competition search, or from a human capital theory point of view. And so then you come up with that. The reason why we are saying that you have to have a theory is because the theories already have predetermined parameters that were used to make an analysis. And so we want to see whether you can have a departure from that theory or otherwise when you're making your study. I think that has been quite discussed, except I think maybe we need to have a second or third question so that we are not the only ones participating. Nixie, do you have a question?
Hello, Doctor. Let me try to frame it. I'm asking.
Thank you. Agapitas? Agapitas, do you have something?
Maybe he needs to unmute.
Kerubo, swali lolote tafadhali. Ni wakati wa maswali sasa. Tunataka tujue kama mlishikisha hizi vitu. We want to know whether now we can have an agreement. Then in the classwork also, I did a presentation on how you can do your citation just using the normal MS Word, and I think I have tried as much as possible to make it very simple. If you can check again, you go to your classwork. I have done that demonstration. So if you do not have Zotero, if you do not have EndNote, if you do not have Mendeley, or you do not have ReciteWorks, those are reference softwares. So if you do not have those reference softwares, Word has a very nice way, and I think I've demonstrated. If you have any issues, I think you can look at that video. And then,
if you can repeat the softwares you have mentioned, Mendeley.
we have maybe I should take you back to what Dr. Ashley was showing. Google Scholar. When you got Google Scholar, there are quite a number of. Let me see what I can. Google Scholar. Let me show you this. Where is Scholar here? Now, if you are you able to see what I'm saying? What I'm doing here? Are you seeing the slides? I mean the. Are you able to see anything?
Yes, Doc.
Yes. So
Yes.
if you
Yes, yes.
if you come to save, there is always not save. Let me. Sorry. If you come to site, run hapa chini. I don't know whether you're seeing your BTEX, EndNote, RefMan, RefWorks. All these are reference materials, so you can save. I mean, reference this is where you can. I mean, apart from Zotero, apart from Mendeley, and the rest, you can use any of them. Of course, this isn't Zapesa. You have to have money to buy this this softwares. But at least Mendeley is cheap. Let me see whether I can open mine. Where is Mendeley? Some people call it Mendeley. I mean, there are just as many, so I don't think maybe we may need to take time, but you can just get time to look at those. We have Mendeley, we have Zotero, we have EndNote, we have RefWorks, quite a number of them. That's why I think I was saying as a research department, when KBC, probably it's time maybe you needed to ask the school when we reach one time to, you know, to buy one of these so that now people can have that access to that. So
Doctor, maybe before we finish, just from what you have mentioned,
yes.
Remember we had a Research for Life, and they gave us some links, and we requested one of us to work on that. The HOD ICT up to date, he has not done anything. I don't know if you can take up the matter from there and ask you.
Yeah, that's your work, sir.
Because now that is where we can find information, and he has not done his part. Yet tulimpatia chai yake alikunywa.
So this is my Mendeley account. I think as why it's taking ages, but as it's opening up, I think I had told you about what about we were to talk something about the 7th edition using the APA style. I don't know, it is somewhere here. Now, in most Kenyan universities and our tradition here in Kenya, we normally use the APA style of citation. I don't know whether we're able to see what I'm showing. Are we seeing? Hello.
Yes.
Munaona kitu kama APA?
Okay, bado
Yeah, tunaona.
ziko kadhaa.
Ziko kadhaa.
Yes, kuna MLA, APA, Chicago, Harvard, Vancouver. Ile yenye ulikuwa nayo haijatoka.
Ile jeje haijatoka gani yenye unaonyesha? Siko hapa singine.
Yenye ilikuwa na group
Harvard, Vancouver.
Hapa.
yenye ilikuwa ya Google Scholar, una search then unapata the various
Hapana,
types of
mimi
references.
ninaonyesha story ya nini ya APA style. Haionyeshi hiyo.
Na hiyo kitu ya Google Scholar unapata
Yeah,
wapi?
hiyo haijakuja bado.
Google Scholar una Google Direct kwa browser.
Oh.
Okay, let me fine. Sorry. Let me repeat it again. There is this reference style called APA. Many times when you will be doing your references, I think it's recommended that you use the APA. Now, first things first.
Imekuja sana.
Yes. So ukifanya citation, whenever you're doing citation, I think is either you are quoting a journal, you are quoting individuals, you're quoting a daily newspaper, you are quoting a website, you're quoting a section of a book, and all those. So basically, that is what now we need to agree. Now, the APA has had to go through several editions. So I don't know. I think I don't know. Actually, is the latest the 7th? Ashley, I think I want to assume that the latest is this. I was doing some study and somewhere, and so I bumped into this. That's why I'm using this now. Let me just give you a few guidelines on this. Where do I go for? First things first, when you are quoting people, I think, for example, they say every. I mean, some of the books that we have what we call DOI. DOI is digital object identifier. So you have a specific code, as it were, that identifies your writing into the digital world. So, for example, if you have got a book, we are writing that Kebisi and Matindu and Jahonga and Mixi wrote a book. Then those are 4 authors of a book. So they say that in APA, when you have got more than 3 authors, initially they would say that at the first site, then you have to write all the 3 or the 4 authors. But with the current 7th edition, when you are quoting more than 3, you just state the first author and the word et al. So for example, here we have got Ewart et al. Full stop, comma, 2014. See, so you have to know that that is how we quote. Even if there were 20 authors, but now when you're writing the reference list, you indicate all the names. And how do we write the names? So it is Josephat Kebisi. So we'll say Kebisi, comma, Josephat, full stop. Then the next person, as you can see, so this is Ewart, comma, E, full stop, W, full stop, comma. Then the next author is Mitten, comma, D, full stop, S, full stop, comma, and then use that ampersand and whatever. So this is very important whenever you are citing. So it is Matindu et al, comma, full stop, comma, then whatever year. Now that was in text. So if it was a parenthetical, you are writing in a sentence, then you are saying that according to Matindu et al, and then in brackets 2014. Sijui kama hapo tumeshikisha. Tumeshika hiyo ya kwanza.
Tumeelewa.
So if you are quoting,
Yes.
if you are quoting Jahonga and Somia, so you just say Somia and Jahonga 2014. But then now we are saying that we have
2014.
got parenthetical and context. So now, like, you know, you are putting katikati ya sentensi ama, I mean, the way you stated. I think I will do a demonstration and send that. Then what else do we want to say? That whenever you are having a reference, of course, we expect you to write the name of the author, the year for the title. If it was a journal, you indicate the journal, then of course the place, where was it published. That becomes very, very important. So you can see that this is a book without digital object identifier. It is Vauxhall, 2018, just like that. Then some books or some references may not have a date. So like you can see here, web page, no date. So ND is no date, as you can see. So you quoted something, but there was no specific date when you got that material from the website. An article without that digital, it's there. Of course, ukiona hii, this is the DOI we are talking about, https /DOI, whatever. So that's the digital reference that we are talking about. And some articles may not have. So for example, you can see this one doesn't have. Then what else do we need to know when we are quoting, when we are writing? You may have a conference paper. So we are doing a conference in Kabete National Polytechnic. So again, you quote according to Kebisi and Kissinger 2019 -- they argue and disagree that education financing in Kenya is purely a political function and not a poverty function. You know, the way you state these things. So we had sent again this 7th edition, and I guess you have had time to read, because if you are not reading and your work is just to wait for us to discuss, then I think it becomes a problem. Please, we want questions from what materials we sent you. If there is any question, I think we can be willing to. You can see all those examples there, 3 or more authors. Wanga et al. 2019 stated that, argued that, opines. You know, those terms that you use in research. We have group, we have got organizations. Quite a number of those things are there in that reference work that I sent. And actually, I sent you 2 sets. There is this, there is the PDF, and then there is this this university where you can. So we have articles. That is how you state who, when, what, and where. So this is an article. You must state the author, the year, what's the title, where is it online, and things like that. And of course, others go beyond by indicating the page. You have it there, and that is an example of how it has been expressed. If you go there, these things are just there, please, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very clear way in which I think we have simplified the work. If it's a conference, if it is a figure, if it's a table, and you will see the table number, e.g. table 1, appears above the table in bold, no italics. Very clear the way they state. No, the table title appears 1 double spaced. By the way, whenever you are presenting a table, how mnajua kwamba when you're presenting your data in table, hizo rows haziko, it is usually just the first and the last one. In upper katikati, in between the table, there is nothing. I mean, you don't have to do anything. So I think most of us should be aware of that. So usually tell the table, the body. I wish I was able to demonstrate that. So I don't know. Sijui kama we have this This is what this is how you present a table. I don't know whether you're seeing that.
Where is it?
Let me demonstrate.
But
Where is this table? Where is this table? It's here.
line juu, line ya chini. Full stop.
Mwana hiyo table? Yes?
Yeah.
You're saying, yeah. So when you're presenting,
Yes.
yeah, it's usually the first two lines allow in between. So you state what are your the headlines of your various columns like that. So if you do a research paper and you're presenting the old style, this is the old style, and then we will just conclude that you never went to class. So this is the latest way of presenting a table. It must be those two lines, or whatever. At least then now we know that you have.
Yeah.
So I mean, those things are there. Please, if you look at all those things, I think I've made your work very easy. And I think when you ask us questions, it becomes. But I don't know, for the sake of time, and my team members may be wanting to. I don't know whether actually they have left. Ashley, are you still there?
Somia left.
Huh? Somia left. What else do you want to know about the table? Let me just go back. So there are many things. If it's an article, if it's a report, hata kama ni report, nakuja tu hapo. Naenda tu kwa hiyo kitu. This is how you write a report. And this is how you quote. It's an annual report. It's a government report. It's a report from a database. Kenya Bureau of Statistics, for example, Metoa census report, press release. All those things are there, ladies and gentlemen. So I think I was doing some study somewhere, and then I bumped into this. We were given this. What I gathered from the universities where I've been, I think, walitupea ile yenye iko complete. So this is your full set. If you have this, you have everything that you want and how you can quote. If it's a video, can you imagine you can quote? This is how they write. If it's a film, director, film director, huyu ni Waititi, whatever, hiyo nini, alafu ni film gani. All those things are there. So we can actually do some serious citations using that kind. So I don't know kama kuna maswali. I think because of time maybe we can call it a day unless
My question was, Daktari, maybe a short recap on the statement problem. I just wanted to understand something.
yes. That's question. What's the question?
I just wanted to understand something on the statement of the problem.
Let me. Yes, I think we had said that when you're writing a statement of a problem, let me use the words of Ashley. That what's your story? What's your story? Many times we write statement of our problems that are not really related to what we want and how we want. Now, me, I would respond this from a quantitative aspect because me, I'm a quantitative researcher. When I write a statement of the problem, for me to make my work very easy, mimi inakuanga tu na vitu viwili. Ya kwanza, what is my dependent variable? In our language, we call it, what is my outcome variable? What is it that I want to get at the end of the day? What is my outcome variable? Then, number two, I will ask, what are my explanatory? What are these things that explain the outcome that I want? These explanatory variables are what we normally call independent variables. So now I have a problem. And what's the problem? The problem is that examination costs have increased, causing what? High dropout. That's a problem. So what are my explanatory variables for that? Because I'm saying the problem is that we have increased examination costs. So the school fees, pesa yenye tunatumia kulipa school fees imeongezeka. And now the problem that I'm having is because of this high cost of examination, we are now having high school dropout. So now the question that you want to ask yourself is, what would be my outcome variable? My outcome variable is I want to find out the number of students who have dropped from an academic institution from a certain period to a certain period. Now, remember my problem is that I'm saying it is the examination cost that has increased. So now I would want to find out what is the cost of examination in sciences, what is the cost of examination in arts, if there is, for example, what is the cost of examination if it is a CDAC exam, and what is the cost of examination if it is a NEC exam. Remember, my problem is that there is high cost of examination. So what will I be using to explain this problem? So in explaining this problem, I would say maybe the examination body is the problem. So I want to compare the cost of examination between Kenya National Examination Council and CDAC and any other. So I will add other examination. CASNEP is there, KISIM is there, whatever is there, internal examinations are there. So I will say maybe the type of examination body may explain the cost of exam. Maybe the nature of the course, is it an artisan? The level of the course, for example, the level of the course. So is it an artisan level? Is it diploma level? Is it degree level? So this level of the cost may determine the cost of education, of the cost of examination rather. And the third one would be that if it is the nature, the discipline, or the discipline, how many course gani yenye mtu anafanya, not just the level, but the nature of the course. So is it a science based? Is it an art based? Is it whatever? Is it a department? Whatever categorization. So now remember that we are saying I have a problem from a quantitative perspective, and I'm saying there must be some priori, in economics we call it priori condition. So there must be some assumptions behind what I'm thinking, because I do not just have a problem from the blues. There must have been cause and effect. We normally call it causality. So what is the cause and what is the effect? That if I look at the level of education, at the level of a program that I'm doing, is it related to the cost of examination? If I look at the examination body of those courses, is it related to the cost of assessment? If I look at the nature of the courses, artisan, sciences, whatever is it related to the cost of education? Now, when I'm going to my literature review, remember, I will have to ask those people, whoever are my respondents, maswali. Sasa, ninapoandika chapter 4 ya nini yangu, ninapoandika chapter 4, ninapoandika chapter 4 ya hii nini, kama nafanya thesis, remember, examiner ataangalia link ya chapter 2 na chapter 4 ya study. When you're doing a conference presentation kama hii yenye tunapanga, tunataka tu tuangalie hiyo literature na evidence ya results zako. Did these results relate with your literature that you studied in chapter 2? So mimi ninapoanzanga ninakuanga na end game already. Sasa nitasema kwamba nitapoangalia, nitaenda uniulize, je, Kerube aliwahi fanya any study kuhusu the cost of education na examination body? So nitaenda very specific. So nitaandika cost of education and exam body. nitaenda kwa Google Scholar niandike cost of education and exam board. And maybe what we also did not explain to you people kwa history ya Google, let me just show everything, the entire window. Ukienda kwa Google Scholar hapa hivi, I hope you're seeing. Inaonekana sio?
Yes.
Ha?
Yes.
Hapo kwa Google
Yes.
Scholar we said unaangalia kwa hii kitu inaitwa custom range. Custom range una specify hii custom range, itakuambia tunataka tu anything latest, so 2020 to 2026. Unaona? So topic yetu nini? Tunaangalia kitu inaitwa exam body and cost of assessment. Cost of assessment. Kitu ingine tuje kuambia kwamba when you're looking now, I just want you to look up, muangalia hapa mali. It is about what, how many results inaonyesha hapa?
4 million.
Hapa chini penye inaonyesha hapa.
Inaonyesha 2,090,000.
These things changes. Sasa nitachukua hiyo exam body nisema that is too wide for me. Nachukua hii na naiweka exam body. Naweka hiyo exam body, alafu niweke hiyo inaitwa hizi ma signs inaitwaje? This opening whatever marks. So nimeifinya alafu nafanya sign. You can now see that you have reduced your search until there is no book except this one. Now I may just want to
one.
exam,
Yeah.
then the word body, alafu cost, alafu nisema assessment. Anything that talked about exam like that. So from 2 million imerudi 733. So now when I'm looking for citations, when nikifinya na hizo whatever na hizo explanation hizo whatever marks hizo, it narrows my search. You are telling the computer, please narrow my search into this thing. And remember, nimekwambia lazima uwe umeweka range yako. So maybe ni 2020 to 2026. 2026. So unapofanya search inakutolea hizo nini zenye within that range. That's number one. Then number two, tunasema kwamba when now you are doing that research unaangalia kwa any other. So mimi wana prefer kuangalia ni watu gani walisite kitu sana. So naangalia hapa hii, naangalia hii walisite many times. So I'm interested in hii walisite many times because probably it is relevant. Problem ya kwamba kama hii sasa haina PDF so you cannot get it. Lakini sasa ukiangalia kama hii ni 1833. Imagine systematic assessment of empirical support of transaction cost economics, whatever it is, if it was related to education. So any serious scholar who does that specific atakuuliza, did you read a book by David K. Han? Because amekuwa cited 1800 times. This is a lot of citations. So you just want to save this guide, as we said earlier. Unapokuja hapa kwa save, these are my folders. Nakuja hapo hivyo and I create nini? I create ile list yangu ni naita exam. So ninaandika hivyo. So anytime nikuje anywhere, I just come save, ninatafuta exam ndio hiyo, done. Anytime I don't have time to do a research, maybe that time niliingia mahali penye sina time, so nitaenda tu pale ninakuja save exam, done. Now when I come to my library ninatafuta exam ndio hii, angalia on my left side exam, so I'll just come to exam. Nikifinya hapo hivyo, hiyo vitabu yote yenye nilikuwa nimesave ziko pale. Then now I may want to cite So nitasite, nifinye tu site, alafu ni kama ni APA, copy paste as you are putting it, alafu niende ni save kwa document. So I was combining two things, but I was saying that whenever you have a problem from a quantitative point of view, look the outcome variable and the explanatory variable. See how they are related. So kama kabisa alisoma vitu ya the level of education and cost of education, uangalie material, level of education and the outcome variable. Kama kuna mtu mwingine alisoma the exam body and the cost of the assessment, angalia. Kama mwingine alisema kwamba the type of the course and the cost of the assessment, you see now. So now you are having from that theme, as she was putting it, thematic. So it's my theme. Which is my theme? Is the level of my course and the cost of education. What is my theme? My theme is the examination body and the cost of assignment. What is my theme? My theme is the type of course, whether it is artisan, it is science-based, and the cost. So now you make that literature review based on that. And now, of course, when now you go to your findings, utakuwa umestudy NEC, utakuwa umestudy CTAP, utakuwa umestudy this internal exams, utakuwa umestudy hizo vitu zote, watu wamesema vitu gani, then now you bring that as a good literature. So as you are saying that number one, nina literature review lakini nina problem ni kwamba ni cost. So problem sio exam body, problem ni cost. Nani na determine cost hizi vitu vingine. So sasa nitaangalia hizi vitu zenye zina affect hiyo the cost, which is the outcome variable. So when you state your problem from my quantitative aspect, that is how me usually I look at things. And then of course inaingia kwa hii kitu kingine ya mwisho hii tunasema ni conceptual framework, which I think we can discuss the next week. Kuna kitu inaitwa conceptual framework. So how do you bring all that thing into an analytical concept? How are these things related to the outcome? Which method? What are assumptions? Control variables. How will you control this variable? You know, some results will be the same because you never factored in some of the variables that you considered in your study. And so we will look at that. So, I mean, that's how me expected. For example, now when you are stating your problem, I didn't want you to repeat again the story of Utam. No. In sasa now we go to the real problem. Paper in your present in July, in November. Can you start doing it now? No. So we wanted you to state that clearly that problem, whatever that problem is. Alafu sasa tumekusaidia story ya citation, na nimewapea link hapo ya kufanya citation. Hivi ndio wanafanyanga citation. Kama ni book, kama ni conference, kama ni journal, kama ni book chapter, hizo vitu zote nimewapea. Naona. So now you can use that example, and then of course you can go ahead and now state your problem. And then of course so now based on your problem, tunataka sasa utuambie assignment require this week ni utuambie your outcome variable, because mimi ni mtu wa quantitative. Utuambie hii ni outcome variable, alafu tuambie about 4 explanatory variables zenye zina explain hiyo outcome variable, alafu utengeneze about 3 pages ama 4 pages ya literature. I think that's the assignment that we'll need to do this week. Juu kama kuna swali tutumalizie hapo. Hello.
Hello.
It is now approaching 10. Do we have any other questions?
Mimi sina.
Andrew?
I've understood it, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay. Jasper? Biashara ndio wanafunga biashara. Jasper?
Yes, daktari. I don't think if I have any question. I'm sorry I was late. Ndio nimetokea tu kanisani. Allow me to ask you during our next class. I'm trying to catch up.
Anyway. So I hand over the meeting back to Bwana Kebisi. I think I would say that that was quite well presented by my two colleagues. We are hoping that we're getting time to, but these materials in our pattern is a kibao. More things we bump into here and there. So take time to study those things. If you have questions and interested, ask questions. So yes, Kebisi.
I have no question, Daktari, only to